and thanks everyone for your time. I'm going to cover a couple of topics here. I'll start with Azure OpenAI, go into CoPilot a little bit, and then I'll cover some aspects of what we call the Microsoft Cloud for Financial Services. My name is Faizan Khan. I'm a director specialist. I focus on Azure, and I'm based out of the DC area. Let's see. I don't normally use Zoom, but let me see if this, there we go. So I'm sure, like Ron mentioned, everyone's, a lot of OpenAI and ChatGPT and just GPT and large language models is in the zeitgeist. You're seeing people passing the bar exam, passing medical exams, et cetera, with AI. My daughter, who's a data science major, was concerned that AI is just going to be taking over, computer programming as an example. So it's real and it's here. And from a business perspective, we're already seeing some of our customers really take advantage of Azure OpenAI and introduce extreme efficiencies. A couple examples here: CarMax estimated an individual would have taken 11 years to do what Azure OpenAI did in a couple of days, which is summarize tons of data that they had historically around cars. You can see the other examples here. So even though Azure OpenAI has been in the news and ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, et cetera, has been around for a while. And part of what happened in terms of really accelerating this is the introduction of deep learning in 2017, generative AI in 2021, and a lot of the power that comes behind it. So from a Microsoft perspective, there's been a lot of focus on this for a while. 2016, human object recognition and human parity for that. Going to 2018 with reading, speech synthesis, document summarization, natural language understanding. There's decision making, et cetera. So it's just a ton of, if you think of a human doing something, it's been a focus area for having artificial intelligence do that same thing at or better than human parity. And in terms of large language models, they've been around for a number of years, but they've been growing larger and larger. And so GPT-3, which was around 2022, is trained on 175 billion parameters. GPT-4 is much larger, but they haven't published the number of parameters, or we haven't published that out. However, we have a Megatron Turing model with a partnership with NVIDIA that's at 530 billion parameters. And I was reading an article the other day on the trillion parameter target for these large language models. So they're becoming more sophisticated, more capable. And while we're going to talk about large language models, this sort of functionality is starting to be introduced into things like computer vision, for example, where it's a large vision models. And part of what's allowed this sort of progression is purpose-built infrastructure. I think everyone's seen NVIDIA's stock price and just how they've powered a significant portion of the compute and processing required for all of this training for large language models. So from an Azure perspective, with purpose-built AI infrastructure, huge amounts of scale. Here's a physical picture. Everything's connected with an InfiniBand, so in extreme scale, low latency. And we have one of the largest supercomputers in the world supporting this. This is a picture, I think, of one of our Dublin data centers. But as an example, you can see for scale, that's a car, I think, right there. And this is just one of many data centers in a region, and one region of many regions across the world. And from an OpenAI and Microsoft partnership perspective, Microsoft invested in OpenAI, started building this purpose-built infrastructure for them, and over the past 4 years have partnered with training these foundation models. And there's three main categories: general predictive transformer, DALL-E, and Codex. We have human language-like generation, realistic image generation, and then advanced code generation through something that we've introduced called GitHub CoPilot as an example, and I'll show a little demo of that later on. But part of what Microsoft's doing with these capabilities is introducing it through almost every one of our platforms and services, so including Xbox Live, and we're calling them copilots. So things like document generation, email response, summarization. Just again, what you think a human can do is being introduced as part of a copilot. That's an enhancement functionality for everyday productivity workers, and I'll show a couple demos a little bit later on. In addition to the infrastructure, we've been working on machine learning software, the service itself as published as Azure Machine Learning, tons of pre-trained AI models, including Turing and Florence models, and then exposure to those via API services. We categorize those as cognitive services, but think like speech, vision, reasoning, and now OpenAI. Those cognitive services I mentioned before in terms of speech, vision, et cetera, also drive then our software as a service services, things like form recognizer or video indexer and cognitive search, which then drive our platform offerings like Power BI and Power Apps. And then finally, our surface as parts or applications. So you'll see it in Microsoft 365 with Outlook and Exchange, Dynamics, et cetera. So it's kind of just an example of how this layered approach is being surfaced through the Microsoft product stack, but it's also able to be extended and introduced through your own custom applications and solutions that are pertinent to your organization. Like I mentioned, OpenAI Service is one of these cognitive services. And I'm going to talk a little bit about security later on, but all of these cognitive services, enterprise grade, secure, they meet compliance requirements globally, et cetera. And so OpenAI does as well, because it falls in that categorization. And what we're seeing as customers have been adopting OpenAI is use cases that fall into four main areas: content generation, summarization, code generation, semantic search. So content generation, call center analytics, for example, auto summarization of call transcription, sentiment analysis, prompting call center agents for the next best action as an example. Summarization, you're going to see this in Teams, but the ability to summarize a Teams conversation and then pull up the next best action items or the action items, the summary. So as an example, I'm starting to find that as I am double booked in meetings, I may skip one, go to the other one, but I'll come back to the summarization of the one I missed and see the action items if there was anything for me, and a quick summary, like a couple paragraph summary of the entire conversation, tagged by the people who have actually mentioned that. So it's a huge productivity gain, and that's really one of the promises of Azure OpenAI. Code generation, got some great stats on this, but effectively a co-pilot to be able to develop code for you, analyze it, create test cases, effectively a developer junior that's enabling developers to really stay in flow and focus on what's important. And then semantic search, things like knowledge mining and discovery of your data within your organization in a secure way and in an isolated way. And then from a multiple modal perspective, tying these services and adding other cognitive services to the overall solution allows for more robust end-to-end solutions, things like end-to-end call center, center analytics, customer 360, and then business process automation. So in terms of capabilities for Azure OpenAI, it's very robust. Again, billions of parameters, trillions of sets of training data, pieces of data. So it can get very creative, like poem creation, to image generation, translation across many languages. It's conversational. It's just doing next token prediction. So it's really, really impressive. And I'll demo a little bit of how it's demonstrating almost reasoning with prompts and data. So in terms of some of the capabilities and how you can start using it now, we published Azure AI Studio, and that allows you to build your own models and train them, ground your Azure OpenAI services, so ground it against your data, so it's not just pulling data from the internet as an example, or making things up, which you might have heard as well. So you have this control over how it responds to questions, and where it gets the data from. With indexing, go back here, retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is a architectural pattern enabling using your own data, and also creating complex prompt flows, which is important. I'll have a demo on that as well, with all of the safety built in. So a common question we get is, in terms of safety, is Microsoft using your customer's data? Is it shared with others? No, it's not. It's your data. The model runs in your tenant. The data is not used to train the model. It's not used to train other customers' models. So it's isolated for you. And that's a public statement. It's on our documents as well. But it's an important question and an important concern. I mentioned this, the use of your own data. So let me demo a little bit here. And I'm not sure if audio is going to go, so I might just narrate this. But effectively, this is the Azure OpenAI Studio, and it enables you to create an Azure OpenAI Studio instance in your tenant. And then what we're demonstrating here is a chat session where it hasn't really used your data. And so it's going to just leverage kind of the out-of-the-box Azure OpenAI Service. You have a chat interface, you can ask it some questions, and it's, the question here is very specific, but it doesn't have information about climbing shoes as an example, or climbing rope. So what we can do here is tell Azure OpenAI to use your own data, and then we point it to your data sources. And in this case, it's cognitive search, but you can point it at databases, unstructured data, et cetera. And what this enables is a cognitive search index of your data to then feed into the prompt structure. The prompts are the primary interface, natural language interface into OpenAI, so that the next time we ask these questions, it will be in context with your data. And again, your data, it's not going to be used to train the model or anything like that, but it's the model that is being fed information about your data. So when we type the same sorts of queries the next time in terms of climbing shoes, this time it's going to actually give an answer that's specific to climbing shoes along with the citations, right? So these are clickable citations. You can click it and see where the data is coming from. And this is just a simple example of how to leverage your own data in this conversational style so that you can enable your users. And one use case here is internal training, as an example, where you may have knowledge bases of internal organizational knowledge that you want to ramp up new users on or new employees on. And in a Socratic method, for example, which is the way I use it, you can just go in and click back and forth, and it becomes a hyper customized or hyper personalized back and forth conversational on training employees. I found that I'm starting to actually use that with ChatGPT quite a bit when I want to ramp up on something new. So prompt flow with data is another example. And this is important because prompt engineering, grounding, et cetera, is one of the primary ways to interact with this large language model. So a short video here. One of the points here is to show that as part of still in the machine learning studio, you can get to a pretty good level of complexity on the flow of your prompt. And not only can you pull in your own data, you can also tie it to other data points. So in this example, that's the reason why I want to keep this in here, is now you got a customer ID. And so when you pass a customer ID into this and tie into your other systems, you can have customer contextual conversation that are now also contextual with your own data. So a high level of control of that customer experience and how they interact with this. And then the final demo I wanted to do here, and Ron, let me know if you can see this screen, because I shared multiple screens. Are you able to see my ChatGPT screen?
I am. It says ChatGPT Plus. You are an expert in structural engineering.
Cool. Awesome, thank you. So what I'm showing here is this is ChatGPT, and the reason why I'm going to show this is more around the reasoning. It's a little silly example, but what you'll see is how using GPT-4, it starts reasoning into how it responds. And you'll notice I grounded the prompt and kind of gave ChatGPT a framework of what its expertise is, because otherwise it's just huge, right? And so it kind of talks through this, and it's a little quick, but it's going through this reasoning as well. And it's funny here, it said the monkey is not part of this because for ethical and practical reasons. So kind of thinking through that and kind of the structure and everything like that. And somewhat silly example, but I thought it was kind of cool. All right, let me continue forward. Then in terms of the security, like I mentioned, your data is your data. We're not fine-tuning or leveraging your data to train our models, and it's protected by all of the security controls that are kind of standard in Azure. In terms of privacy, inclusiveness, accountability, transparency, and if you think of security just from a physical security perspective, to a network security, to a policy, to a prevention, et cetera, it's all there. Won't go into this one. Azure is built on zero trust security. But I would say Microsoft invests more than $1 billion a year in security. You know, we process trillions of signals. It's a huge focus area for Microsoft. And it's just pervasive all throughout every single service that's offered, including Azure OpenAI. And then, of course, meeting compliance regulations globally as well. This is just one small example. All of this is published on our trust portal. So like I mentioned, a lot of what Microsoft's doing with generative models is introducing them into our services, and we're calling them co-pilots. And just a couple of quick examples here, where we take a co-pilot, which is effectively using generative AI to assist humans in complex cognitive tasks. And it's all natural language driven. It's usually a kind of a sidebar with the co-pilot, but it's also contextual. It understands your data. And I thought some of the cool ones that I would demo, because there's a lot, right? We're introducing it everywhere, is the Power BI Copilot. So Ron, I'm not sure if the audio is coming through.
It is not.
It is not, okay. So I'll talk through this. So effectively what we're doing here is it's going to create content with Copilot, and it's taking a natural language input against your data that's Power BI is connected to. So it's going to analyze the data, and then it'll create the report. So just imagine the productivity gain of what you just saw in terms of what used to take maybe days and weeks to actually create the report, took minutes, right? And then on the right side is the interface in Copilot, where you can continue to ask questions and requests, et cetera. And in addition to that, it's just like Power BI, you can interact with this dashboard as well, change it up, et cetera. So one of the things, and we're going to see this in Excel as well and in summarization, but in terms of the analysis that you can ask without actually understanding the data or diving into it or clicking it, right? Just a natural language interface into how you interact with something like Power BI. So I'll cut that short a little bit, just for time purposes. The other Copilot I wanted to demo is GitHub Copilot. And so here, essentially, so we're looking at a developer interface. You know, it's multiple coding languages. I think this is Python and Django. And so one of the things Copilot can do is take your comments and then act on those comments. Again, all natural language to develop code. And so here in this example, we're going to show a natural language prompt, but the rest of it is now created by GitHub Copilot. and it's developing the code, it's typing it out, and the class itself. And it's kind of interesting. And so you, as a developer, you can go in, you can change things up if you need to. And then it's contextual also because CoPilot understands that like a speaker class was created. And so now it's generating a talk class just by it. So take that example and then add things like, hey, I've got tons of code that's legacy code. And our developers don't fully understand it. It's been around for a while and it hasn't been really marked up properly in terms of comments, et cetera. Hey, CoPilot, analyze this, comment things out, explain it out to me. It can do that sort of thing. Create test harnesses for this. You can do that. What is the purpose of this class, right? Explain. Just imagine this sort of developer productivity increase, which some of the stats are listed here, just for your entire development organization. It's huge. And so this is also powered by generative AI. So in terms of Microsoft Cloud for financial services, it's one of a number of kind of focused cloud offerings that are on Azure. And the idea here is a cloud for financial services and others, or healthcare, manufacturing, et cetera, is really tuned to help accelerate a number of solutions, right? Purpose-built solutions, including risk assurance, regulatory compliance assessments, fraud, et cetera. It enables you, accelerates you and Microsoft partners to actually implement or extend first-party services. It's been around for a little bit, this November 1st. It runs within existing Microsoft data centers, and we can speak with the Microsoft account team to understand it further. But in terms of the different experiences, things like predictive targeting, agent efficiency, collaboration manager for loan, there's fraud aspects, there's customer onboarding, banking, customer engagement. It's a platform running on our cloud, so Dynamic and M365 and Azure, that are geared towards financial services. There's a lot more there than just to be cognizant of time. I mentioned a number of these. I've shared this presentation with Ron as well. And a little bit more deeper into it, just to point out how it's on Azure, it's running through all of the cloud offerings like M365, client products like Teams and Outlook and Viva, and then accelerating a number of different financial services oriented use cases. So that's it. Just went pretty quickly through a ton of topics, and I hope it was interesting and resonated. Definitely reach out for additional info. There's a couple of links here as well, or your account team, and everyone will be happy to help.